Rome's worst nightmare, the genius of Hannibal. In 218 BC, a figure emerged from the rugged landscapes of Carthage that would forever haunt the Roman Empire. Hannibal Barca, a military genius whose tactics and audacity would push Rome to the brink of collapse. His name struck fear into the hearts of the mightiest of Romans. With his brilliant strategies and near-impossible victories, Hannibal's campaign against Rome remains one of the most remarkable feats in military history. This was Rome's worst nightmare, a war with no clear end, no peace in sight, and a general who knew how to exploit their every weakness. Yet, despite his genius, Hannibal's fate was sealed. This is the story of his genius, his victories, and the fall of his dreams of conquering Rome. The Second Punic War, 218 to 201 BC, was not just a struggle between two ancient superpowers, it was a clash of ideologies and cultures. Rome, already the dominant force in the Mediterranean, stood in stark contrast to Carthage, a city-state at the crossroads of trade, power, and naval might. Their rivalry had been brewing since the First Punic War, which left Carthage humiliated and weakened. Rome's aggressive expansion and control over Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica had only intensified the bitterness between the two. The man who would lead Carthage into this war was Hannibal Barca, son of the famous general Hamilcar Barca. Hamilcar had sworn a blood oath that his descendants would avenge Carthage's defeat in the First Punic War. From a young age, Hannibal was steeped in the art of war and taught to despise Rome. By the time he took command of the Carthaginian forces, he was already an experienced commander, having fought in various military campaigns across Spain. In 219 BC, Hannibal's first act as a leader was to capture the strategic city of Saguntum in Spain. This act of defiance against Rome was the spark that ignited the Second Punic War. The Roman Senate declared war, and the stage was set for a conflict that would forever alter the course of history. The moment that would define Hannibal's genius, and Rome's worst nightmare, came in 218 BC when he set out on an audacious journey to cross the Alps and invade Italy. This was a gamble, an unprecedented move that would require immense logistical coordination and unshakable resolve. Rome, confident in its might, had never expected such an aggressive approach. The crossing of the Alps. Hannibal's march from Spain through Gaul to the Italian peninsula is one of the most legendary military feats of all time. The Alps, towering and treacherous, had never been crossed by an army of such size. Yet Hannibal, with his famed tactical brilliance, managed to navigate through hostile terrain, overcoming natural obstacles and the threat of constant attacks from local tribes. His army, originally numbering around 50,000 soldiers and 37 war elephants, was reduced significantly by the time they reached Italy. Yet, they were intact, and the psychological shock of such an invasion struck Rome hard. The Romans could hardly believe that their enemy had crossed the Alps with such precision. The Battle of the Trebia, 218 BC. Once in Italy, Hannibal wasted no time in engaging the Roman forces. His first major victory came at the Battle of the Trebia. The Romans, under the command of the consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus, had underestimated Hannibal's ability to command the battlefield. Hannibal used the cold of winter to his advantage, luring the Romans into a vulnerable position near the Trebia River. With his forces strategically placed on both sides of the river, he launched a devastating attack that crushed the Roman legions. The victory not only dealt a severe blow to Roman morale but also showcased Hannibal's genius in tactical planning, psychological warfare, and battlefield manipulation. The Battle of Lake Trasimene, 217 BC. But it was the Battle of Lake Trasimene that would cement Hannibal's reputation as one of history's greatest military tacticians. The Romans, under the command of Consul Gaius Flaminius, pursued Hannibal through the Italian countryside, believing him to be retreating. However, Hannibal, with his uncanny ability to manipulate terrain and predict Roman movements, set a trap that would lead to one of the worst defeats in Roman history. He positioned his forces in a narrow pass, concealing them in the hills around the lake. When the Romans advanced, they were caught in a deadly ambush. Over 15,000 Roman soldiers were killed, and the rest were thrown into disarray. The Battle of Cannae, 216 BC. But it was at Cannae that Hannibal's genius reached its zenith. In one of the most stunning tactical displays ever recorded, Hannibal faced a Roman army nearly twice the size of his own. The Roman consuls, Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, led an army of over 80,000 soldiers, while Hannibal commanded around 40,000 troops. Outnumbered but not outmatched, Hannibal employed a double envelopment strategy that would become a textbook example of military genius. He intentionally weakened his center, allowing the Romans to push forward, only to trap him on both flanks and the rear. The result was a massacre. Nearly 70,000 Roman soldiers were killed or captured, making Cannae one of Rome's greatest military disasters. The Roman Republic was shaken to its core. The Senate, the people, and even the military were stunned by the magnitude of their defeat. Hannibal had succeeded in what was thought impossible. He had defeated the Roman legions in a way that would leave a lasting mark on history. Key decisions and consequences. While Hannibal's victories were stunning, the crucial question remained: why didn't Hannibal march on Rome itself? This is one of the most debated questions in military history. The Romans, though devastated, were not without resources. Their resilience in the face of disaster, coupled with their capacity for rapid reinforcements, allowed them to regroup after each defeat. Hannibal, for all his brilliance, failed to capitalize on his victories with a final push to Rome. There are several reasons for this. One critical factor was logistics. Hannibal's army was weakened after the Battle of Cannae, and the prospect of laying siege to Rome would have been fraught with difficulties. The Romans were experts in defense, and Hannibal lacked the necessary siege equipment and resources to successfully mount an assault. Additionally, Hannibal's forces were spread thin, with no clear supply lines and a lack of reinforcements from Carthage. Another key decision was Hannibal's failure to unite the Italian allies against Rome. Despite his victory at Cannae, he struggled to gain the allegiance of key Italian city-states, many of which remained loyal to Rome. The Roman ability to rally its allies and maintain a sense of unity proved to be one of their greatest strengths. Historical impact. Although Hannibal's campaign did not result in the fall of Rome, the impact of his genius and the Second Punic War was far-reaching. The Roman Republic, though severely weakened, underwent significant reforms in its military strategy. The lessons learned from the disaster at Cannae shaped future Roman commanders, including the legendary Scipio Africanus, who would eventually defeat Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Hannibal's defeat at Zama marked the end of the Second Punic War, and Carthage's ambitions of dominating the Mediterranean were crushed. Yet, even in defeat, Hannibal's legacy as a military strategist endures. His tactics are studied by military leaders and scholars to this day, and his ability to challenge the might of Rome with limited resources remains an unparalleled example of ingenuity. The story of Hannibal is one of triumph, tragedy, and timeless lessons in leadership and strategy. His ability to outmaneuver a superpower with his sheer brilliance continues to captivate historians and military enthusiasts alike. But what could have been if Hannibal had made different choices? Could he have truly brought Rome to its knees? The unanswered questions surrounding Hannibal's campaign only add to his mystique. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think was Hannibal's greatest mistake? And make sure to check out our next video on the Battle of Tarentum, 212 BC, where we explore another pivotal moment in Rome's history.